gunfire rings out at the Tower of London in a ceremonial death gun salute in memory of Queen Elizabeth II, who died peacefully at her Balmoral estate on Thursday afternoon. 96 shots, one for every year of her life, were fired from Hyde Park and the Tower of London in the capital, Edinburgh Castle in Scotland, Hillsborough Castle in Northern Ireland, and Cardiff Castle in Wales, as well as the Channel Islands and Gibraltar. And from the United Kingdom and Scotland, we will be joined later by our correspondents, Ariane Celestino, Janelle Ann Casuga, and Aribel Celestino. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II peacefully died in Edinburgh Castle in Scotland on Thursday at the age of 96. The Queen's eldest son Charles, Prince of Wales, immediately ascended to the throne. World briefly unites to mourn the death of Queen Elizabeth II. COVID cases in the Philippines projected to reach 1,200 to 5,000 daily in October. And a 5-story building has collapsed in northern Syria, killing 11 people, including 3 children.
Longest-serving monarch in British history and an icon instantly recognizable to billions of people around the world, died on Thursday. She was 96. Cez Alvarez has the story.
Buckingham Palace announces Queen Elizabeth II's death in a short statement. This will be followed by 10 days of national mourning and tributes to her long life and record-breaking reign. In a statement at 6:30 p.m. local time, Buckingham Palace says the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral. It says the King and the Queen consort will remain at Balmoral that evening and will return to London the next day. The eldest of her 4 children, 73-year-old Charles, Prince of Wales, is the oldest heir apparent in British history, becoming king immediately. The Queen's death comes after the palace announces that doctors were concerned for her health and recommended she stayed under medical supervision. All her children, Charles, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, and Prince Edward, flocked to her Scottish Highland retreat at Balmoral. They were joined by Charles' sons, Prince William, and his estranged brother, Prince Harry. 2 days earlier, the Queen appointed Liz Truss as the 15th Prime Minister of her reign. This is Cez Alvarez reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Britain's new king, Charles III, said Thursday that Queen Elizabeth II was a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother who would be missed around the world. Here is the full statement issued by Buckingham Palace after Charles, 73, ascended the throne following his mother's 70-year reign. The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held.
UK Prime Minister Liz Truss calls for the British people to support King Charles III as he takes on the awesome responsibility of monarchy following the death of Queen Elizabeth II.
Today, the crown passes, as it has done for more than 1,000 years, to our new monarch, our new head of state, His Majesty, King Charles III. With the King's family, we mourn the loss of his mother. And as we mourn, we must come together as a people to support him, to help him bear the awesome responsibility that he now carries for us all. We offer him our loyalty and devotion, just as his mother devoted so much to so many for so long. And with the passing of the second Elizabethan age, we usher in a new era in the magnificent history of our great country, exactly as Her Majesty would have wished, by saying the words, "God save the King."
The Queen's eldest son, Charles, Prince of Wales, immediately ascended to the throne. What is expected of him? Live from Windsor Castle, we have with us our correspondent, Arian Celestino. Arian. Arian? Can you tell us what's going on there right now?
Right now, as you can see, there's a steady flow of people, and there's so many flowers laid down in front of Windsor Castle, as you can see. And yes, the eldest of the Queen's four children, Charles of Wales, became king.
Can you hear me right now? Okay, it's good to see that a lot of people are putting flowers in dedication to Queen Elizabeth II. I'd like to know, are there a lot of people your age who are paying tribute and their last respects to the Queen?
Yes, and not only, there are little children as well here coming visiting the castle, Windsor Castle.
Because her reign is very long, it lasted 70 years. And so we know that she is loved by people of all ages, right? Okay, what else can you tell us about the situation right there?
I can feel the solemn atmosphere as people are here to remember those years where the Queen was still alive. And yes, there are a lot of people right now that are keep going, and yes.
As you can see, Arian Celestino was right at the venue of the, where was she? She was at the Windsor Castle, and she was able to see how many people there were to pay their last respects to the Queen, who passed on yesterday afternoon. Thank you so much, Arian. Okay, Arian.
Well, we will be back with Arian's report later on what is expected of Prince Charles after the passing of the dear Queen. Now, a period of national mourning has begun as people flock to Buckingham Palace, bringing flowers, shedding tears as they mourned the passing of England's Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Let's hear more on the situation outside the Buckingham Palace with our correspondent, Janelle Kasuga.
On Thursday, Queen Elizabeth II, the longest-serving monarch in British history, and an icon instantly recognisable to billions of people around the world, died in her Scottish Highland retreat at Balmoral Castle. She was 96 years old. The first day after Buckingham Palace announced the death of the Queen, in a short statement, a period of national mourning has begun. It is set to take place until the funeral, which is set on the 18th of September. Police closed the roads around Buckingham Palace, where thousands of people are gathering in, bringing flowers and shedding tears, as well as singing God Save the Queen. An official notice, edged in black, is posted behind glass at the gates of Buckingham Palace. The palace lowered its Union Jack flag at half-mast, which signifies the death of the monarch. It's still a shock to the public as well as the nation. 96 guns had taken place in Hyde Park in central London, as well as the Tower of London on the River Thames. One round was fired for every year of the Queen's life and fired 10 seconds apart. From Buckingham Palace in the United Kingdom, this is Janelle Suga, reporting live from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Leaders from every corner of the globe briefly united Thursday in homage to Queen Elizabeth II after the world's longest-serving monarch died at her Scottish home at age 96. Here's Vin Pasqua for the details.
Tributes poured in from countries she had ruled over to those she had been at war with, from tiny territories to the mightiest governments on the planet, and from centuries-old institutions to nations that had not yet been born when she took the throne. Here are some of the accolades to Queen Elizabeth, who had ruled the United Kingdom since 1952 and was also head of state in 14 Commonwealth countries around the world. Global tributes were led by the Commonwealth, the association of countries that were previously part of the British Empire, as well as its remaining overseas territories. South Asia, where Britain was the colonial power until just before Elizabeth's reign began, paved the way, with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi saying he was pained by her death. In the Southern Hemisphere, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa described how he and the Queen had reminisced together about Nelson Mandela, while Kenya's President-elect William Ruto hailed her admirable leadership of the Commonwealth. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese paid tribute to her timeless decency and said her death marked the end of an era.
Today marks the end of an era, the close of the second Elizabethan age. This time of mourning will pass, but the deep respect and warm regard in which Australians have always held for Her Majesty will never fade. May she rest in eternal peace.
The smallest Commonwealth members also paid tribute, with David Burt, Premier of the tiny British territory Bermuda, hailing her life of undimmed duty. U.S. President Joe Biden called the Queen the first British monarch to make a personal connection with people around the world, as he ordered flags at the White House and government buildings flown at half-staff in her honor. Others who have taken a less friendly view on Britain also sent tributes. Russian President Vladimir Putin offered his condolences to King Charles III, wishing the new monarch courage and resilience after his mother's passing, even as Britain leads the West in imposing sanctions on Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. While in Germany, which in the Queen's lifetime went from Britain's greatest enemy to a powerful ally, hailed her as a symbol of reconciliation after 2 world wars. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said her commitment to German-British reconciliation after the horrors of World War II will remain unforgotten. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida echoed that sentiment.
激動の世界情勢において英国を導いたエリザベス2世女王陛下の崩御は英国民のみならず 国際社会にとって大きな損失です。英国民の皆様がこの深い悲しみを乗り越えるにあたり、日本は常に英国と共にあります。謹んで哀悼の意を表させていただきます。
Argentina, which fought and lost a bitter war with Britain over the Falk Islands in 1982, expressed its regret over Elizabeth's passing. In a Thursday statement from the Foreign Ministry, the government offered its sorrow and said it accompanies the British people and her family in this moment of grief. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Queen Elizabeth had been widely admired for her grace, dignity, and dedication around the world. She was a reassuring presence throughout decades of sweeping change. I am Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. also expressed his sympathy and condolences to the British people in the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. In a statement, President Marcos said the world lost a true figure of majesty in what she demonstrated throughout her life and her reign as queen. The president, along with First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, Ilocos Norte Representative Sandro Marcos, and House Speaker Martin Romualdez signed the Book of Condolences for Her Majesty the Queen. Marcos said Queen Elizabeth II exemplified to the world a true monarch's great dignity, commitment to duty, and devotion to all those in her realm. The president said that he, along with other Filipinos living and working in England, though not subjects of the Queen, have developed a profound sense of affection for her as a queen, as mother, and as grandmother. Coming up,
after having spent Thursday
the period of mourning for Queen Elizabeth II starts in UK. Queen Elizabeth is the most famous person in the world, but who was Queen Elizabeth to her family? And where do the royals sit now in the line of succession? Find out more of these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Isa ka ba sa nagulat sa mga gastos sa biglaang pagkakasakit o pagpanaw ng isang mahal sa buhay? Nakarinig ka na rin ba ng mga kwento na kahit masakit mawalan ng mahal sa buhay o magkaroon ng may malubhang sakit, kinaya pa rin nila na pinagdaanan dahil may insurance na sumagot ng gastos? Perhaps many of us are also planning for insurance to have funds available for emergency situations and even death and critical illnesses. Pero paano nga ba ang pag-invest sa pamamagitan ng insurance? We'll find out from our special guest, Mr. Harold De Leon, First Vice President of Security Bank Corporation.
This pandemic has really taught us the value of insurance, and I strongly encourage you to get protected. Do it now, mahirap ipagpabukas ito.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
We are back with bringing you more stories on the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And now we will be hearing again from Ariane Celestino of what is expected of King Charles III. Ariane, tell us more, please.
The eldest of the Queen's four children, Charles, Prince of Wales, became king immediately, who at 73 is the oldest heir apparent in British history. Royal officials confirmed he is now known as King Charles III, the first king of that name to sit on the throne since 1685. Britons were pushed into recognizing the beginning of the end of her reign when in April 2021 she lost her beloved husband of 73 years, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. The palace had long recognized her mortality and the transition to Charles was already well underway. He, Prince William, who now becomes heir, and his wife Catherine began to assume more of the Queen's official roles. The coronavirus pandemic and her advanced years forced her into isolation of Windsor Castle, west of London. One of the Queen's decisive acts was to settle an unanswered question for the succession, giving her blessing for Charles' second wife, Camilla, to be called Queen Consort. Charles's inaugural address, set to be pre-recorded, was expected to be broadcast on Friday evening, part of 10 days of plans honed over decades by Buckingham Palace and the UK government. The new king was also expected to hold his first audience with Prime Minister Liz Truss, who was only appointed on Tuesday in one of the Queen's last official acts before her death. Charles was also due to meet officials in charge of the arrangement of his mother's elaborate state funeral, which will take place before she is laid to rest in the King George VI Memorial Chapel at Windsor Castle. The final public farewell at Westminster Abbey in London will be a public holiday in the form of a day of national mourning. Charles's coronation will take place in the same historic surroundings as it has for centuries, on a date to be fixed. On Saturday, his reign will be formally proclaimed at St. James' Palace in London by the Accession Council, which comprises senior politicians, bishops, City of London dignitaries, and Commonwealth ambassadors.
Thank you so much, Ariane. Thank you, Ariane, for your report coming out of the Windsor Castle. I'm sure you will be following this story, so we'll be waiting for your reports on the developments there.
From Windsor Castle, United Kingdom, this is Ariane Celestino for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Now, the Union flag has been lowered on public buildings across the United Kingdom, except for the Royal Standard, the monarch's personal flag, because the monarch never dies. Now, what will happen in the coming days? From the Edinburgh Castle in Scotland, let's hear more from our correspondent there, Aribel Celestino. Aribel, tell us what's happening there.
The royal family on Friday began observing a mourning period for Queen Elizabeth II that will last until 7 days after her state funeral, royal officials said. The last major period of national mourning was in honor of the Duke of Edinburgh following his passing on the 9th of April 2021. After having spent Thursday night in Balmoral, King Charles III on Friday left the remote royal estate bound for London, seen in a convoy of cars with Queen Consort Camilla. As the Queen died in Scotland, her body will lie in St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh for 24 hours on Sunday to let the close family to pay for their respects. This is part of the 10 days of national mourning beginning on Friday. The King and the Queen Consort are expected to return to Scotland. She will finally be laid to rest at the St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, where her late husband, Prince Philip, and both of her parents, the Queen Mother and George VI, are also buried. The day of her funeral and the day of the coronation of King Charles III will both be national holidays. Union flags were lowered and flown at half-mast on royal residences, government and military buildings. British embassies across the world have opened books on condolence, as well as the official royal website, royal.uk. Back to you, CJ.
Thank you so much, Aribel. Thank you, Aribel. I know you have been following this report since yesterday. Just one last question before I let you go. Are there still a lot of people waiting there? Because yesterday, the media were there, everyone was there, and they're awaiting the news.
As of now, there isn't a lot of people, but since it is a tourist spot, there's still a lot of people around here. But earlier, during the firing of the 96 cannons to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth II, many people gathered here from the fountain to look upon the cannons being fired from Windsor Castle right in the background. So it was a moment of unity here from Edinburgh.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Aribel, for your report. We'll be awaiting the developments coming from you. Thank you, Aribel.
Thank you so much, CJ, for having me. From Edinburgh, United Kingdom, this is Aribel Celestino reporting live for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The death of Queen Elizabeth II comes with an institutional change to the British monarchy not seen since her own accession to the throne in 1952. Now, where do the royals sit now in the line of succession? The instant that the Queen died, her eldest son and heir, Charles, became Britain's new monarch, officially known today as King Charles III. He had been first in line to the throne for 70 years since the accession of his mother and was the longest-serving Prince of Wales. The new king's wife, Camilla, legally and automatically became Queen Consort in accordance with English common law. The line of succession is the official order that members of the royal family would inherit the throne, and it is updated with each birth and death that occurs within the royal family. This was done in the hours following Queen Elizabeth II's death. Prince William, who had been second in line, became first in line, also acquiring a new dukedom, becoming the Duke of Cornwall and Cambridge. Prince George and his siblings, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis of Cambridge, became second and third and fourth to the throne, respectively. Prince Harry and his children, Master Archie and Miss Lilibet Mountbatten Windsor, also moved closer to the throne as fifth, sixth, and seventh, respectively. Royal spouses, including Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle, are not included in the line of succession because they are not of royal blood and cannot inherit the throne in their own right.
In another part of the globe, many Hong Kongers took to social media on Friday to mourn Queen Elizabeth II, a woman affectionately nicknamed Boss Lady, among older residents in a city that was one of Britain's last colonies. Residents also lay flowers and pay respects to Queen Elizabeth II at the British consulate in the former British colony of Hong Kong. K.S. Tsui, a mourner at the British consulate, said the Queen is the boss. Under the Queen's reign, many refugees from China were able to have a new life in Hong Kong. Tsui added that Hong Kong has also evolved from a fishing village to a metropolis. Thus, the boss lady's contribution is undeniable. Queen Elizabeth visited Hong Kong twice during her reign, while her son, now King Charles III, was present for the handover to China in 1997.
The reality
A well-loved figure and looked up to by world leaders for her grace, dignity, and compassion, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II made an impact not just in world history, but also in pop culture. She is the most famous person in the world. But who was Queen Elizabeth? Watch this.
Prince Charles, now King Charles III, will reign. Within 24 hours of the Queen's death, lawmakers in Parliament will take oaths of allegiance to him, 73 years old, and the longest heir apparent in British history. Operation London Bridge, the procedure after the Queen's death, which has been meticulously planned for decades, down to the last minute detail, and signed by the monarch herself, is now in motion. As king, Charles is now the head of state, not just in the United Kingdom, but in 14 other Commonwealth realms, including Australia and Canada. Queen Elizabeth may have passed, but her legacy will live on forever. I'm CJ Hero for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In other stories, the Department of Health said that Metro Manila's COVID-19 cases could reach more than 1,200 to 5,000 per day by next month if the uptake of booster shots remains slow. As projected by the Australian Tuberculosis Modeling Network, around 1,259 to 5,375 COVID-19 cases per day are expected to be on record starting October. DOH Officer in Charge Maria Rosario Vergeire said that this instance is possible to happen because of the slow booster uptake, increased mobility, and presence of coronavirus variants, and the resumption of face-to-face classes with a recommendation to make mask wearing outdoors voluntary. Meanwhile, Vergeire reminded the public that this projection may not only happen if people would be more careful by strictly following a one-nation approach to the health and safety protocols and by getting vaccinated. To enable the voluntary face mask wearing policy, health experts recommend the strengthening of booster shots. Report from Nadine Aguilar.
A public health expert has urged the government to strengthen its booster shot vaccination to ensure success on its plan to pilot tests to make face mask wearing optional. In an interview with Net25 Saga ng Mamamayan, health advocate Dr. Tony Liachon said easing of mask policy may result to COVID-19 resurgence if vaccination of booster shot remains low.
Dahil yung booster nila mataas, so protected yung mga tao. So kahit mataas ang transmission rate, yung positivity, they can dance with the virus already. Kasi kahit magkaroon ka, matibay ang iyong katawan. Sa atin, hindi pa tayo boosted, mataas pa ang ating transmission rate. Dalawa kasi dapat ang criteria. So, delikado yun kasi it will create problems.
Liachon said the health department should clarify the definition of fully vaccinated individuals, which was one reason for the low turnout of booster vaccination. The other factor is the low initiative to encourage people to have their primary dose vaccine and the booster shot against COVID-19.
Pumunta ko kayo sa website ng Department of Health, nakalakad doon, ang fully vaccinated at dalawang bakuna lang. So akala ng mga tao tapos na. So dapat redefine na ang kailangan natin ay 3 bakuna at hindi 2. So nangyari, nanamlay po.
Liachon suggested that government agencies should use the first months of the Marcos administration to encourage more people to get booster vaccination.
2 buwan na lang hinihintay natin from the first 100 days of the President. Ba't natin hindi hintayin? Tapos, mas maganda na yung Nobyembre, Disyembre natin. Rather than tanggalin natin ngayon outside. Tapos, ang booster natin matumal. Baka hindi natin ma-meet yung goal natin. Sayang.
Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is considering the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force in making the wearing of face masks optional in the Philippines. Eden Santos has the report.
The Marcos administration is considering the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force against COVID-19 to liberalize wearing of face masks in the country. This after President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. met with the officials from the Department of Health and the Department of Interior and Local Government or DILG following his inaugural state visits to Indonesia and Singapore. According to PBBM, he is glad to know that there is continuous decrease in the number of COVID-19 cases because of the vaccination against COVID-19. Because of this, the President is looking into the recommendation of Interagency Task Force or IATF with the optional wearing of face masks. The recommendation is gained support from the public, especially in non-crowded places.
Sa Pilipinas, syempre mas maganda na tanggalin na rin yung face mask, pero baka sa situation sa Philippines hindi pa sa ngayon. Pero syempre looking forward na natanggalin din yung face mask na nagsimula na yung face-to-face sa atin.
Depende din naman po sa lugar. Kasi merong lugar na dapat nakasuot pa rin ng face mask, meron din naman lugar na hindi.
Pero sa tingin niyo doon sa mga lugar na okay na? Even Filipinos in Singapore were interviewed by Net25 News were approved to make the wearing of face mask optional in the Philippines. Singapore has been practicing the optional wearing of face masks few months ago, which helped to open the industry of tourism.
Kasi kaka-lift lang ng pag-alis ng face mask, mas maayos kasi yung mga policies dito sa Singapore. So, mas na ma-manage nila.
For protection. Protection sa aking sarili, protection din ay basta.
Pero kung gusto nyo rin tanggal, lalo na kung medyo mainit, okay lang. Eden Santos, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Severe tropical storm Inday intensifies further as it continues to move northwest direction. Based on the 5 p.m. bulletin, Pag-asa says its current location is at 720 kilometers east of Apari, Cagayan, or 730 kilometers east of Calayan, Cagayan. It has maximum sustained winds of 100 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 125 kilometers per hour. Inday is moving northwest at 20 kilometers per hour. Within the next 24 hours, Inday may reach the typhoon category status, and it is forecasted to exit the Philippine area of responsibility early next week. Up next, building collapses in North Syria, killing 11 people. Seoul calls for talks with Pyongyang on family reunions. And Greenpeace activists prevent Russian gas from being unloaded from ship. Mata ng Agila will be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Sa bawat sumbong may respondeng katapat. Hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sinuman ang nangangailangan. Isang batang 9 taong gulang nagsauli ng perang napulot sa kalsada. Ang kanyang kabutihan ating kinilala. Inirereklamong pila ng tricycle sa Muntinlupa City na napakahaba. Lokal na pamalaan ating kinalampag. Mga sira at tinapon ng tsinelas, ginawang art para magkaroon ng kabuluhan at pagkakakitaan. At mga tampok sa ating e-responder, grupong Solar Hope, nagbibigay liwanag sa mga madidilim na lugar sa Luzon. Makikilala na! Mapapanood nyo kami sa mga sumusunod na mga channels. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. A 5-story building that was illegally built in Fardus has collapsed, killing at least 11 people, including 3 children, the Syrian state television reported. It also said 2 people were injured and 7 nearby buildings were evacuated for fear that they might collapse as well. Search operations were still ongoing amid the rubble in case more people might be buried under the debris. The city council chief in Aleppo told Sana news agency the area, which was once a commercial hub, had been badly damaged during Syria's ongoing civil war.
Seoul proposed further talks with Pyongyang regarding a new round of family reunions following a tension spike around Pyongyang's missile tests. The South and the North should confront the painful parts of the reality, Seoul's Unification Minister Kwon Yong-se said in a briefing. We must solve the matter before the term separated families disappears, Kwon added. However, Pyongyang state media reported that the North has passed a law declaring its readiness to launch preventive nuclear strikes, including in the face of conventional attacks. The move effectively eliminates the possibility of denuclearization talks, with leader Kim Jong-un saying the country's status as a nuclear state was now irreversible. According to KCNA, the law specifically states the North can use nuclear weapons in case of a nuclear or non-nuclear attack by hostile forces on the state leadership and the command organization of the state's nuclear forces, among other situations.
Greenpeace activists in Sweden have blocked a ship to prevent it from pumping Russian gas ashore. Protesters climbed onto the cranes used to unload the gas. A Greenpeace boat and activists in kayaks are blocking the ship to prevent it from docking. Greenpeace is demanding the Swedish government immediately to stop importing Russian natural gas. They say money the Russians make from selling oil and gas is being used to finance the war in Ukraine. Sweden's government says only 2% of its energy supply is made up of natural gas, and Russian energy accounts for less than half of that. It also says neither the EU nor Sweden currently has sanctions on Russian gas. Next on Mata ng Agila International, London stocks open up as exchange mourns Queen's death. And Harry Potter's Tom Felton reunites with on-screen dad Jason Isaacs. Please stay tuned. We will be back with more news.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
This portion is brought
European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde announces the ECB is lifting its key rates of interest by 75 basis points. This leaves Europe sitting in a range of between 0.75 and 1.5%. The announcement comes after the bank hiked rates by 50 basis points in July, its first increase in more than a decade, to tame the record Eurozone inflation. Lagarde says these levels will ensure the timely return of inflation to the 2% medium-term target.
The Governing Council today decided to raise the three key ECB interest rates by 75 basis points. This major step frontloads the transition from the prevailing highly accommodative level of policy rates towards levels that will ensure the timely return of inflation to our 2% medium-term target.
London's stock market rose strongly at the open Friday following overnight gains in Asia and on Wall Street as the British Capitalist Exchange mourned the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Trading for the first time since confirmation of the monarch's passing late Thursday, London's benchmark FTSE 100 index jumped 0.9% to 7,326.26 points in early deals. The pound also rallied against the dollar, as did the euro, as traders booked profits following recent strong gains for the greenback. In the Eurozone, Frankfurt's DAX index gained 0.7% to 12,990.77 points, and the Paris CAC 40 won 0.6% to 6,163.35. We are deeply saddened at the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the London Stock Exchange said in a message posted to the front page of its website. Our sympathies and condolences are with the royal family, LSE said further. The LSE is expected to shut on the day of the Queen's funeral.
Bernard Shaw, who was CNN's chief anchor and stayed with the network for 2 decades, has died at age 82. His family told the network he died on Wednesday of pneumonia with no relation to COVID-19 at a hospital in Washington. Shaw was CNN's first chief anchor when the network began broadcasting in 1980, and he remained with the channel until his retirement in 2001. CNN chairman and CEO Chris Licht sent his deepest condolences to Shaw's bereaved family in a statement, as he was the one who announced the death of their former lead anchor to the public. A public memorial service will take place at a later date after a private service this Sunday. Meanwhile, the family requested that in lieu of flowers, donations be made to the Bernard Shaw Scholarship Fund at the University of Chicago.
They played the notoriously dark father-son duo Lucius and Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter films. And Draco actor Tom Felton was reunited with his on-screen dad, Jason Isaacs, on Monday as the actor came to support him at his theater performance. The Harry Potter stars posed for a sweet selfie together outside the Criterion Theater, while Tom wrote in the caption, "My father heard about this play I was in," a nod to Draco's entitled attitude in the films. Isaacs also shared his own snap and gushed in the caption, "So proud and, along with the audience, thrilled to see my boy commanding the stage today." Felton also revealed that he sought advice from his Harry Potter co-star Daniel Radcliffe ahead of making his play debut.
Now let's take a look back on today's historical events. In 1878, Sergio Osmeña Sr. was born in Cebu. He served as the 4th president of the Philippines from 1944 to 1946. Osmeña led several missions to the United States to campaign for Philippine independence and became instrumental in gaining Commonwealth status for the Philippines in 1935. In 1908, Orville Wright made his first one-hour airplane flight in Fort Myer, Virginia. In 1976, Mao Zedong, also known as Chairman Mao, died. He was the founder of the People's Republic or Republic of China, which he led as the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from the establishment of the PRC in 1949 until his death.
Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II will always be remembered for her wisdom. And now here is one of her inspiring quotes. When life seems hard, the courageous do not lie down and accept defeat. Instead, they are all the more determined to struggle for a better future. Life will come with many challenges. Imagine if we all just gave up. What will happen of us?
That's why never ever always look to tomorrow.
Always look to tomorrow. That's beautiful. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Rich Yalago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.